Hi everybody. Today we are covering something that I feel is one of the most practical lessons we will have all year, and that is finding the percent of the number. So our goal today is that you can multiply to find the percent of a number to solve real world problems. So in your notes, and I will check on this, where will you use what we are going to learn today? So think of places that you have to add a percentage to figure out a number. I'm going to leave this, and when I pause at the end, we'll have some ideas up there, but I'm interested when I walk around to see what you have come up with. So first of all, I'm going to teach you two methods to use this. One practical application you might have come to, and we're going to do this at the very end, your exit ticket will be, I'm going to put this receipt right here. This is a receipt and it was purchased in Rochester, Minnesota, but at Herbert's and Gerbert's, a sandwich combo was $10.82. And then there was tax on that, and we'll talk about tax a little later. And if you notice down here, there's a space for the tip. Your exit ticket is to figure out if a tip was left, what should it be if we were given 20% to whoever your server was. That's your exit ticket for today. I'll bring it back at the end. In the meantime, let me teach you how to try this using two different methods. Okay, the words for the first method are to write the percent as a fraction and then multiply to find the percent. So I've started one for you and we will go through the steps together. So if you look at 25% of 72, put a little reminder, all year we've been working on the word of in mathematics. Google translates into a multiplication sign. So if we write 25% as a fraction, it is 25 over 100, 25 100ths. Most of you have worked enough with this that you know that that is 1/4. So I already reduced that for you. Now we talked about cross-reducing in our last chapter. So we can take 4 and 72, I used a blue pen here, and when you divide 72 by 4 you get 18, and 4 divided by 4 is quite obviously 1, and we multiply straight across. So we get 18 over 1, which is 18. So if this was dollars, if Mrs. McKinley was going out to spend some money on a great new game for you guys, and it was $72, and there was a 25% off sale, how much would I get off of that game? That is $18. So the next method that you may use, and probably I would say the most popular of the methods, is to simply change the 25% to a decimal. We worked with that earlier in this chapter and all along the way, and we know that 25% is 25 100ths, which is written 0.25. So all you need to do is 25 hundredths of 72, and there's my of right there. We'll simply do the arithmetic and see if we come up with the same answer. All right, I came up with this number, but remember we have two numbers behind the decimal, and we worked with our swoops earlier. We place our decimal right there. To begin with, these are the two different methods you have to choose from doing any question regarding percent. The next thing I want to do is talk about finding 10%. We're going to try both methods and see how they come out, and notice a pattern about what happens when you multiply any number by 10%. So right here I have made 10% into 10 over 100. We already know that we can take a 0 off to reduce that fraction, so it ends up being 1/10 times 72. So if we were to multiply this out, what would we end up getting? Let's do the arithmetic here to do this. So first of all, let's look at what is 72 divided by 2 so we can cross reduce. So I'm going to go over to the side, 72 divided by 2. 3 times 2 is 6. Get the 1, bring down the 2. Okay. And this will be 5. And this will be 36. So 36 and 5, we end up with 36 fifths, which if we end up doing making this into a mixed number, we're going to get a 7. 5 goes into 36 7 times, and we get 1/5. 7 and 1/5. Now if you think about what amount we add up to get a dollar, what are 5 equal amounts that equal a dollar? Well, I think 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. So 20 cents in each fifth of a dollar. So this will end up being 7.2, or we talked about earlier, our cows come home zero, $7.20. Some of you might remember the pattern that we discussed a couple chapters ago in our decimal chapter, and when you multiply by 1/10, what happens. Let's review that by just going through it. If I do 72 times 0.1, obviously I am going to get a 72 down here, but there's one place after the decimal. We're going to swoop it over and end up with 7.2, or when we're dealing with money, we add that cows come home zero, as we like to call it, and we end up with 720. Many of you are thinking, this way seems like a lot of steps, and it is. There are times when you might want to use fractions, but when we're dealing with money, a lot of times what is easiest is to work in the same system as the money, which is the decimal system. So if you look at the $7.20, and you look at what is 10% of $72, it's 7.2. Notice that you just swiped that decimal place over 1 to the left. So think right now in your head, I'm going to give you a number, tell me what 10% of it is, just using the pattern that you see happening right here. What if something costs $56? So my example is, what is 10% of $56? Go ahead and pause that video and then unpause it. So if we use the same logic that we used up here, the same pattern, and we take 56 and 10% of it is 1 to the left, it's 5.6 or $5.60. This is a great technique to use if you are at a store and having to figure this out in your head. You know you get this much off of whatever item that you are purchasing. Finally, we are going to talk a little bit about tax. I remember when I took my own children to the dollar store and everything in there is $1, but when they get up to pay for things, when they were small, especially their little toys, they were surprised when the amount came to over $1. They hadn't accounted for the tax. Now here in Lakeville, Minnesota, our tax is approximately equal to 7%. It's actually 7.125 here. If you go to the dollar store and you buy one item and you spend $1 on it, there is a 7% tax, which means that, and we're going to convert this to a decimal, for every $1 that you spend there, so if I spend $1, you pay 7 cents in tax. If you have $2 spent at the dollar store, you end up with double that, which is 14 cents in tax, and so on and so forth, until you really need to estimate high for how much money you need when you go shopping, because they're going to tack on this tax every time you purchase something. And I wanted to show you the receipt that I have here. You'll notice that it is $10.82, and they charged 88 cents in tax. I'm going to click over really quickly to the tax calculator, and notice that I used my receipt in Rochester, Minnesota, where the tax rate, they have a city tax that's on top of it, so they pay 8.125%, or around 8% in Rochester. So the same sandwich is going to be a little more expensive. So the tax on that sandwich was 88 cents, which you see here, bringing us a total of $11.70. So it's important when you are budgeting for purchasing anything that you don't just realize percentages have to do with how much you get off of an item if it's on sale, but we are always paying an extra 7 to 8% when we are buying our items, because there is sales tax on that. All right, so you've learned a little bit about the tax. If you spend, let's say, $9.50, would you try to see what the tax on that would be if you find 7% of $9.50? So what I want you to do is multiply it times the 0.07, pause the video, and see if you have an answer that matches mine. So a lot of you might have some questions. Mrs. McKinley, I got 0.6650, or 665 thousandths. What do I do with that? Well, in our money, we can only go out to here, the hundredths. But what we do in our rounding is we peek to the right. If it's 5 or above, it rounds up. So in $9.50, we will actually not just owe 66 cents, it will be 67 cents that will be tacked on. So if you are paying $9.50 for a new item, you are going to end up paying $10.17, not just $9.50. All right. So finally, I would like you to tell me, if I paid, and I'm going to go ahead and tip on the tax amount. Usually you would just tip on the $10.82, but just for the sake of round numbers, your exit ticket is to say how much my meal would cost if I spent $11.70 and I wanted to add 20% more to that. So what is 20% of $11.70? That will be my tip. I will add them up. What should I put here? That is your exit ticket.